drug-fueled parties, gorgeous women, and boatloads of Benjamins.
Life was good. Parties every weekend.
It sounds like the notorious lifestyle of millionaire drug lords, and it was. Except these drug lords just happened to be a couple of teenage jocks from a high school in Tampa, Florida.
How do you go from being a bunch of high school wrestlers to being Florida's drug kingpins, now become known as the Jukes of Oxy?
We're just young guys caught in a nationwide epidemic. The money was just so good. You know, making $40,000 a month, you know, it can be a little blinding and tempting.
Almost overnight, classmates Doug Dodd and Lance Barabas went from living in a trailer park called the Swamp to the exclusive domain of Tampa's rich and famous.
He's an 18-year-old kid, and he's living next door to the coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right on the water in Tampa Bay.
And they owed it all to a national health crisis, addiction to the pharmaceutical opiate Oxycontin.
The plan was hatched at their local school, Hudson High, where before they were big-time drug dealers, they were just a group of very close friends and student wrestlers trying to make a name for themselves as members of the Hudson Cobras. But when they started popping pills, their lives very quickly changed. And they made a name for themselves all right, not as the Cobras, but as the Jukes of Oxy.
It started when Doug and Lance stumbled upon a new way of getting high by feigning pain.
The doctor we had was 80-something years old. I mean, he was frail. He was an addict himself. You could tell he was an addict. Next thing I know, I'm getting 240 oxycodones and 120 Oxycontin.
We talked to Lance over the phone and he said scoring Oxy was easier than being kissed on prom night.
Well, it was unbelievable how easy it was. Once we realized the pills were so easy to get and the quantities were so easy and the demand wasn't just so high that we couldn't even get enough pills. There was such a demand.
That's how things started going. You know, we would find people that wanted to go to the doctor and we would pay for it and then we would get their medication.
Their high school drug team quickly graduated to the college ranks. With the help of an old wrestling buddy, they forged an underground network that distributed hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of pharmaceuticals to universities across state lines. At its peak, these kids were moving an average of 20,000 Oxycontin a month to Tennessee, Alaska, South Carolina, and New York.
Their operation was unique, to say the very least. The pills were shipped in containers like this, but it was the way the Jukes of Oxy got paid that will blow you away. The money came back inside teddy bears like these, stuffed, would you believe, full of cash.
Good times for the Juke boys, not so much for those on the receiving end of their operation. The countless lives destroyed by the highly addictive synthetic heroin.
Knowing that I was a part of that isn't good.
You feel guilty about that?
Yeah, of course.
The drug companies were complicit. The doctors were complicit. The pharmacies were complicit. This was big business. It's almost like heroin was legalized in Florida.
But with big business comes big problems, as the Jukes were about to learn the hard way. The Jukes of Oxy, pillbilly teenage wrestlers making a killing pushing prescription opiates. Doug Dodd and Lance Barabas will never be confused for criminal masterminds, but that didn't slow their epic rise from local stoners to national kingpins.
So in what must have seemed like the blink of an eye, you'd gone from selling to friends locally to what was in effect a multi-state operation.
Right. We went from selling to people in the state to buying everything we could in the state. Florida is known as ground zero for the pain pill epidemic. And meaning, you know, some counties have more pain clinics than they have McDonald's.
As dealers, their timing was impeccable. The Oxy crisis was exploding across the states, and nowhere was it more pronounced than here in Florida, and particularly along what they called the Redneck Riviera. Florida's laws didn't require any database for prescriptions, and as a result, physicians wrote 10 times as many scripts for pain medication as every other state in the country combined.
You can buy something in Florida for $8 and you can sell it in Tennessee for $50. Who doesn't want to be in that business?
For a couple of guys from a hard-scrabble neighbourhood called the Swamp, The answer was a no-brainer. Piles of cash rolled in at a staggering rate, 40, sometimes 50 grand a week. Doug tried to remain low-key.
Just wanted to save $500,000 and get out.
Lance tried to resurrect Tony Montana.
He was crazy sometimes, you know. He went and got a concealed weapons permit so he could walk around with a gun on him. Why would you do that, you know?
When I was buying all the crazy stuff and all the guns and stuff, yeah, I was definitely acting like a little Scarface, that's for sure.
He would sit on the balcony of his apartment, his luxury apartment, and he'd get out a gun, an AR-15, and put the lasers on and start training it on people walking along the promenade on their foreheads. And, you know, people would see these, they'd look up and they'd scream. I mean, it's a terrifying thing to do. What a nut.
Tell me about the time Lance went car shopping.
He went and found a Ford F-150 Ford Lightning, all decked out, of course, red of all colors. And he walks into the place with like $25,000 cash and buys a truck. And I'm like, bro, what are you doing?
What, with hundreds and fifties?
50s, 100s, 20s, yeah.
In 2008, the DEA finally took notice. A shipment of pills was intercepted in Tennessee. A dealer turned informant, and that spelled doom for the Dukes of Oxy.
I think everyone realised it was a sinking ship, huh?
Yeah, it was a sinking ship, the Titanic. It was going down, it was going down hard. When it all ended, I was sleeping, and you know, I get woken up to my dog going crazy and the doorbell and everything. So I jump out of bed and I come through the door and I see a bunch of people over there that are on black suits and stuff like that. And I say, who is it? And he's like, DEA. And I was like, oh no, you know. And
you knew then that you were done?
It was over with.
DEA, search warrants, open the door!
As soon as I opened the door, the guy pulled my arm through the door and put me in handcuffs.
Indicted by a federal grand jury, Doug was sentenced to 5 years in prison. His partner in crime, Lance, received 15. I caught up with Lance at his new home.
This call is from a federal prison.
How are you holding up? How's life in Florida's federal prison?
I mean, growing up in prison's not too fun.
Well, can you remember the day that it all unravelled for you, Lance? The day the day the police moved in?
Probably the most vivid memory I have. I go to get in my truck and it was just a swarm of just unbelievable amount of like DEA and all kinds of people there.
7 years of your life in there, that is a lot of time to reflect. What have you come to in your own mind?
I've seen the light, I've seen the system, and I will never be in it again, that's for sure.
I have to wear this GPS monitor.
Doug is out, but still on house arrest.
You'd be looking forward to getting this thing off your leg, I'm sure.
Yes, I am.
He lives in the home of his grandmother, Beverly, the one person whose support never wavered.
I think he has a future. Everybody's got to give him a chance. Everybody needs a chance.
How much does she mean to you?
You know, she's my guardian angel, you know?
She means the world to you, huh?
Yeah.
The Dukes of Oxy may soon be on the big screen thanks to best-selling author Guy Lawson and the story he wrote for Rolling Stone.
It's got the makings of a great movie. It's got the makings of a great, great movie.
All right, I'm gonna go look for a job.
Okay, good luck to the job.
All right, love
Okay,
you.
bye-bye.
All right.
But there's been no happy ending for the real Doug Dodd, who struggles to find a job and salvage some shred of his wasted youth.
Well, what's your message to anyone who might be thinking of doing the same thing?
I wouldn't do it, man. The war on drugs is real. You can make $1 million and the feds come in and they're gonna take every single thing they can take. They're coming for you and they're gonna take anything and everything. And then they're gonna throw you in jail for 15, 20 years, 30 years.